Me being a child, I had really never ever even realized that spirituality was a thing. I knew God was something. I knew Jesus was a man out of the Bible, but it was something that I didn't know that there was more. You know, the word universe never ever came into my field at all. And then at the age of 33, when my ex-husband I found out he had an affair. And that was like a pit bull that had really brought me down to my knees. And I realized that I needed to do something about my anger and something about the deep sadness that I was carrying for such a long time. And I went to a clairvoyant. A friend of mine said to me, yeah, go to a clairvoyant. I'm like, who are they? What do they do? And I went to a clairvoyant and he said to me, well, you're just an unhappy young lady. You're beautiful inside and out. I'm like, don't talk shit to me. I need you to help me with my anger. Like, that's what I need right now, okay? And he just said to me, you just don't love who you are. And I didn't understand a single word that he said in that moment. What do you mean I don't love who I am? But the beautiful part of that was he led me to a weekend of where I come from in Johannesburg, South Africa. He led me to a weekend of going away with a group of caregivers who worked for hospice in a certain part of Johannesburg. And that weekend was probably the first weekend where I realized how, as much as I think I'm in control, I've got no control. Our higher selves know what is good for us. And what I mean by that is I love to talk, okay? And it's just who I am. And that Friday, we went on a weekend, and the Friday we arrived, and I remember there were 3 facilitators up on the board, and the one facilitator I just didn't vibe with. There was something about her that I just didn't like. She was very stern in her face, but because I was chatting to everybody, getting to know everybody, guess what? I forgot to put my name up on the board. And she was a facilitator that I had to go and be with. And I was so resistant. I was so upset by the fact that I had not put my name down because I wanted to go with the other 2 facilitators, but it ended up being life-changing. She was the one person who helped me to start on my journey. And it's probably the first time that I realized how much I'd held on to since I was a little girl. And like I said, I was 33 years old. And I then decided after that weekend that I was important. And I realized that the more that I had to work on myself, my parents' stuff, what I mean is my parents' anger, my own stuff, the stuff that I'd suppressed for many, many years, the more I let go of the trauma, the more I felt lighter, the more I connected. And I brought the most magical books into my space and the most magical people. And I can tell you probably longer than the hour that we've got together as to how the more I dealt with my shit, the more beautiful synchronicities helped and came into my life. And again, I just realized I wasn't in control. So,
Michelle, can I just ask you a question at this point, because I think that's really quite an interesting point, mate. You mentioned a couple of times that you're not in control. That I have the same sense that we don't have control. Something else is bigger than us. Yet so many people talk about trying to control situations, control people. What's your thought on control? What's your thought on how much we are guided by another force? You've called the God force.
So I'm assuming that most of us, we either believe in something, whether it be God, the divine, source, universe, whatever it is to you. And for me, the letting go of control of the humanness, and what I mean by that is our minds are so small in comparison to what else is out there. And what I've learned, and for me, is our higher selves are always guiding us. You know, it's like that knowing of, and I don't know if any of you are moms, but if any of you have been pregnant, Mira, I know you're a mom because I've, spent time with your little person, but when you were pregnant with her, nobody ever said to our mothers when they were pregnant with us, okay, now this baby inside our stomachs needs to get eyelashes. Now this baby needs to get toenails. It just happened. It was a knowing. It was magical. It was a miracle. And then we came into this world, and then we had all our programmings and our belief systems and our parent stuff and our ancestral stuff. And I think all of that stuff that happens, and you can see my unconscious body language, gets caught up in our heads. And when we let go of so much of that and work on ourselves in whichever way you bring into your field, whichever modality comes into your world, the more we let go of the control of what we think we know to be true, the more the magical synchronicities and the magical moments of life will happen. So
just it's amazing listening to that, because a number of times you mentioned letting go of thinking, letting go of and that higher self. And there's so many mediums or people working in this space trying to think really hard how to get an idea, how to make sense of an idea. And what you're saying to us is like, just let go, just do it. Is that what you're saying?
A part of me wants to say yes, but that's so freaking hard, isn't it? It's like, what do you mean, actually? I'm sure there's quite a few years ago, what the hell do you mean let go? Like, my world's in control. It's all working for me. And I know I was one of those people. And I think that is the knowing, is when you let go, life shows up. When you let go, but at the same time knowing who we are, knowing who you are as an individual, knowing what you stand for, knowing what your truth is, knowing what your guidance system is. I truly believe that that's when, again, and I use the word, and I've used it a few times already, that's when life happens, because life is happening for us. It's not happening to us. So I know that I got stuck in my trauma. I got stuck in the patterns. I got stuck in the ancestral patterns. And as an example, when I divorced my husband at the age of 35, my ex-husband, my daughter was 14 months old, and my dad had had affairs. My mom's dad had had affairs. And I wouldn't be surprised if it went back probably 5, 6, 7 generations. And my parents, no joke, literally begged me to stay with my ex-husband because my mom and dad stayed together. And I said, there's no ways. I am not staying with him. Somehow I didn't realize at the time that I was changing the pattern, but I wanted something that was better for me and something that was better for my daughter. So even in that, by letting go of that and what I was governed to do by my parents and what they wanted me to do, even that was a letting go. And it was freaking scary. It was really, really scary for me because, I thought my parents always knew better. But I had to step up and show up for Michelle. And that was what was important.
Michelle, one of the things with us as mediums as we're working, a lot of times it's notable that we have to go through similar experiences and highly emotional or difficult situations to have sort of an affinity with our clients or what we have to let go of. Do you think that's important that we go through these things to have these patterns, rather than avoid them? Or is it important also that we deal with them and actually let them go?
I would honestly say it's important that we deal with them. If I'd known that I'd had well, let me say it like this. I'm still learning so much about me and my spirituality. And I bring beautiful teachers like yourself, Tony, like Jill into my space. And I've met the most magical people from around the world. And for me, we are all students and all teachers. My path, my journey for me has been to let go of the trauma, to let go of the past pain, to let go of the anxiety, to let go of the deep, deep sadness that I felt and still feel sometimes every now and again. So that's been my journey, but I don't think it's important for me to say, well, this is what you guys need to do. I feel that you will all find your way. And part of that is you showing up tonight, because you're here to listen to me. And I'm like, well, who am I? I'm just like a human being, a normal human being. And I've had my past. But there's somewhere that your higher self is saying, okay, well, what can I learn? Even if you take one thing out tonight, what can I learn from Michelle? What can I learn from Tony? What can I learn from the group of 4 I Am? because we're all unique individuals. But yes, my path has shown me that I needed to let go of what I've held on to, because the mass of who I am, the energy of who I am, because we are spirits having a human experience. And part of my journey in this lifetime has been intense. It has been hard. Do I wonder why I had to create that and why my life was like it was in this lifetime? Well, 100% for sure. Do I wish it could have been different? Shit, yes. I wish it could have been like, well, I was born into royalty, but I think we've all got our shit, even if you're born into royalty.
Well, I don't think we would have the person we have now if that's the way you were. And I can't wait to see you sitting on the
Possibly, I
throne
don't know.
and having that sort of language being able to be broadcast across, say, Zoom.
Maybe I would have messed up the royalty. I don't know. Hey, I don't
Would
know.
have made a new bit of royalty, and it would have been something we hadn't seen before, I'm sure. Just a little piece on how do you connect? You know, all mediums have a different way of connecting. You have quite a subtle, easy way of just connecting. What do you connect to? If people are sitting here listening and wondering, what should they connect to? You said a number of times your higher self, but is that just a term or getting out of yourself or something? How do you work?
So to go back a little bit, for many, many years, I thought that I had voices in my head. And what I've come to realize is that that was the voice of my guardian angels, of, again, I personally am still learning. Like, it's spirit. It's you know, some people talk about they connect to the council, and I'm realizing more and more. Recently, I've connected to extraterrestrial, beautiful galactic beings, and how I connect. In the simple way of how I've learned is I just go within, I take a few breaths, and then the guidance comes through. And I don't know if I can even say to any of you that this is how simple it is, because it is that simple. Again, it's having to let go of the busy mind. The busy mind that is that voices. I'm not too sure. You just say, you know what, guys, give me a sign.
That's amazing, Michelle. Like a lot of people are spending hundreds of dollars on workshops listening to how to become a medium, how to gain a technique. It ends retreats away. And what you're saying, it's a lot about letting go and just listening to inside. Is that what I'm picking up?
For me, again, I can only talk from my own personal experience. For me, that was part of my journey, Tones. That was part of me letting it go, learning to meditate. That was something that I really, really had. Like, I couldn't meditate for longer than 5 minutes. So what I did was, you know, and it's. I think we all get caught up when we listen to gurus or people who are on YouTube or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, just go quiet," and I'm like, "What? What do you mean just go quiet? Do you freaking know who lives in this head?" And so what I did was I started watching a burning candle, and I taught myself and my kids, and we'd time ourselves. And it's a beautiful exercise to do for anybody that is really wanting to just bring themselves into just watching the candle burn. And then after that, I would be in that quieter space, because I would still think, oh, I've got to go do groceries, or I've got to cook soon, or whatever, book a client in. But in that quiet space, I would then ask, okay, I have a question. Can you give me some guidance on the question? And I would only ask one question at a time. And slowly but surely, I would be able to ask more and more and more. And I then started teaching myself that when I lay in bed at night, I would go quiet within my body, take a few big breaths within myself, get my body to relax. And then I would ask again, okay, guys, I would just say exactly that. Okay, guys, I have a question. You know what? I do wonder, what are our soul's journeys about? And I don't know who's out there. You know, there's so many conspiracy theories, but the next morning I'd wake up and I would watch something on YouTube, or something would pop up on my email, or you and I would have a conversation, or you and I would Jill would have a conversation, and my answer would pop in, and I'd be, okay, yep, that resonates with me. So Does it make sense to everybody?
Certainly does. Do you think it's a frequency, Michelle, that's a little bit different to our other sort of thinking frequencies? Is it something that we just got to find by being that quiet inside ourselves? And is it that easy to pick up?
I want to say that, yes, it is. It is that easy to pick up. Sorry, I'm just getting some messages as we talking about this right now as to how to give some guidance. So it is that easy to pick up, but it's the quietening of the monkey minds. It's the quietening of the letting go of the devices. It's the quietening of the letting go of ourselves and how we know ourselves to be. And what I'm being guided to say right now is that Michelle's journey has been different, but everybody's journey that is showing up tonight has been different. And not one's person, let me say that again. And they so this is what happens, okay? So can you hear how I'm trying to be in control? Okay. So, and now they're laughing at me, whoever they are, they're laughing at me and they're like, okay, Michelle, funny, you're not in control. So this is what happens. And now years ago, this is what I used to think was like the millions of voices in my head. And as soon as I started going, okay, hold on, listen, and I really have to just go in, take a big breath. You are all unique in who you are. You have all shown up here tonight for whatever path or journey you're all on. Mediumship doesn't show up as one thing in Michelle's life. Michelle is a medium in many different avenues. Michelle is able to work with the guilt, with the trauma inside of herself, which then she's able to work with other people. And in the showing up of the mediumship, the medium of the ship being the vessel, if that makes sense. We are the vessels. We have to learn how to be the captain of our vessels, learn to be the captains of our own ships. Michelle is correct in saying that there's no right or wrong, or there's no one right modality. Okay, so what they're asking me to do is share, for example, like when I first started on my journey was, I started studying NLP, neuro-linguistic programmings, for those of you that perhaps don't know NLP, neuro-linguistic programmings. For me, it was incredibly science-based, but it taught me so much about the unconscious body language of who we are as people. And just to let you know, I see people are sending us messages, like typing out messages, and Tony and I will get back to you. So just so that you are aware, we will read them, okay? I feel it's important to acknowledge you for typing. But at that time where I started in my journey, besides the hospice retreat or the hospice weekend that I went on, I then continued to do counseling skills with hospice. I became a hospice caregiver, which taught me so much empathy, so much compassion for human beings, but for myself as well. And then NLP came into my space. And for me, that was very science-based. And I kept thinking, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. So I would ask more questions. And that's when slowly but surely a book would come into my space. And the most amazing things would happen. Like I would be at a library and a book would fall out in front of me. My head would kick in and go, oh no, that's not for me. Oh, let me pick it up. Let me put it back. But then I'd stand and go, hang on, that actually fell out for me for a reason. And I'd pick it up and then that book would bump me up again. So I hope this all makes sense with what I'm saying, but I personally, and up until last year, I didn't know what to label myself. I mean, if you had to look at my emails, if any of you have been friends with me that long, My label changed so often because I've studied quite a lot of different modalities. And then I was like, well, this is who I am. And then I'm a psychic. Then I'm a psychic medium. Then I'm a spiritual medium. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I? But because I work in so many different ways, does it really matter? I had to realize that the right people will come into my space at the right time. And those are the people that I can hopefully guide and facilitate their healing. But yes, I've had to also give myself the name of a medium because it resonates with the world and the world with where we're at right now.
Michelle, can I ask you a couple of questions? We've got a couple rolling on the chat now. When was the first time that this happened to you, when you started to give a message? And how did you feel, or what did you think when you gave someone a message, gave out that first piece of information?
I can't remember the exact date and time that it happened, but I was counseling back in Johannesburg, and I had a client sitting in front of me, and she had lost her baby daughter, which I didn't know at the time. And I had this beautiful, beautiful picture of her holding this little baby in a white dress. And I asked this client of mine, I said, have you lost a baby? And she started crying. And she said, yes, how did you know that? And I said, well, her spirit is here with me right now. And if I have to think about the timeline, I'm probably getting about 10 years ago, plus minus. And then that little soul started speaking through me to the mom. And it was an incredibly healing moment. And funny enough, after that session, I still remember thinking, wow, where did that come from? How did that happen? And I then started trusting myself and knowing that I was a channel to help a client sitting in front of me in whichever way I possibly could.
Nice.
So does that answer the question?
It certainly does. And Araxi's asked, when we go to do a reading or a session or some channeling, do you sometimes get the information beforehand, or does it resonate with what's going on in your life or things as well? Are there clues about something coming beforehand? I hope I've got that story out there, Araxi, for you.
No, that's basically what I was asking. Is what I do is, before I start channeling, I request to be given the words for the other person to understand. It doesn't have to make sense to me. It has to make sense to them.
Right.
Most of the time, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I try changing a couple of words just as an exercise.
Yes.
And whenever I repeat what I have been told, exactly with the words that I have been told, they understand. Whenever I change one word, they don't.
Michelle, does that happen to you as well? When you're going to do something and, it's the little words or the idiosyncrasies that come across, and do you pick it up beforehand?
So what's happened with me in the past is, I'm going to give you an example, and then I'll answer your question, Araxi. So the one time I was in Sydney on a train, and I was on holiday. And I was sitting behind this sweet little old man who was in his own world. And his wife came to me in that moment. And she's like, just tap on his shoulder. Please, Michelle, please. He would love to hear from me. Please, this would be just the most, I would really just be so honored if you could be the medium, if you could be the channel. And I remember thinking to myself on the train, oh my God, if I tap on this man's body, he's probably going to drop down dead. Okay, like that would be my first thought. Like, how does he, like a stranger, just tap on him, And then my head went to that lady, the Long Island medium, like how she goes around with the camera. And I'm like, no, that's not how I want to do it. So these are the different thoughts that I have, okay? And I thanked her in that moment for choosing me. But I also said to her, this is my holiday. And I would appreciate if I don't feel comfortable doing this for you. I don't feel comfortable in this moment. And she thanked me. She said, well, I had to take a chance. And I sort of walked away out of that and went, oh, okay. My natural place and instinct of life is to have the guilt. the guilt pattern. Oh my God, I should have done it. Maybe it could have been beneficial to him, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I was very clear. I'm here on holiday. Okay. So that's an example. But what happens is, as soon as a client connects with me, if there's somebody that has passed on in the spirit world that wants to connect, I mean, there's times that I'm brushing my teeth and they're like, oh, I'm so excited. Yay. I'm so glad they chose you. And I'm like, guys, I'm brushing my teeth right now. Can you just let me be? Because they get excited. That's what, the way they come through me. They get excited about connecting with the loved ones that are here. To answer your question though, Roxy, I can feel into somebody's energy and I get the answer immediately as to where they're at. If there's anxiety going on in their world, I'm in their field immediately, and I've had to teach myself, even if I go to Pack and Save, I'm in my world, because otherwise I found I was going around and I was just getting messages from people, and I found that wasn't healthy for me. And then I also sort of, for me, would say, is it any of my business? Because I can be, and I have been in the past, a very big rescuer. I want to rescue everybody. I want to make everybody feel good. And I've had some pretty amazing experiences to say, you know what, you've got to wait for somebody to come into your field. So, but it's got to be on my terms. With the example I've given you with Spirit, the way I've gotten to know them and the way I've channeled in the past, they want to share love, they want to share light, they want to help with any kind of forgiveness and the humanness of who we are. And they will take their chances, but they will say, thank you, Michelle, because I have free will. I have the choice to say, thank you for using me or wanting me to channel, but you know what? I'm spending time with my family right now. Does that answer your question, Roxy?
No, doesn't matter. Don't worry.
Okay.
What
I think you have your way. I think you have your way, and that's what matters. You know, I think we all have our various ways, and can I just go in a little bit and give you some more guidance on that, Roxy? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
Would you be okay with that?
I think you are trying too much to think about it rather than letting it flow.
Possibly, because I have to be honest, like I'm sitting here quite nervous at the moment, you know.
Why?
Because this is the first time I've done such a big group, and I'm a human being, you know. So I think it's a really beautiful moment for me to go, this is the realness of who I am. And I love that you're honest enough with me, you know, but I am. I'm not just, I can handle, this is who I am, okay? I am so real in who I am as a person that I'm also okay to allow my vulnerability to admit that I'm nervous. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if I close my eyes, but I'm also respectful of asking you, if I close my eyes and I go in, absolutely. But as I'm sitting here with my computer, my body's been shaking, and I'm telling my body, calm down. It's okay, Michelle, you've got this. It's okay. But I know my pattern of my mouth goes dry. But that's the realness of who I am. You know, I'm not doing a one-on-one with a client. This is the first time I've done a big group, and it's pretty overwhelming, but it's beautiful at the same time. You know, so that's why I say it's, I keep it real. I really do.
Michelle, let's come in and give you a hand with some questions. Maybe it can help in this situation as well. So Araxi was just asking, do we pick up something beforehand and then we relate it? Because that's what she does. She picks up things and then that becomes something that's coming up later on. She doesn't know why. And so often as mediums, we get words in our head and they go around and they're not ours. Or afterwards as well, you get sayings and you think, I don't know where they came from, and they relate. Do you get things like that? Do you look at things and think that means something, for somebody, and that makes sense?
Yes, I think in my story of going to Pack and Save, 100% for sure, I do. But what's been important is I have to know what is mine, what is my story, and what is it for me, and what is somebody else's, because it's so easy to get into somebody else's field and into their energy. So maybe this might answer your question, Araxi, because now I feel a little bit calmer. So thank you for putting me out of my head. Okay. When a client comes to me or I connect with them on Zoom or over the phone or whatever, I completely and utterly trust and believe that whatever comes out of my mouth, and for some of us who are on the Zoom, some of the ladies here have been my clients. They know that sometimes there's some weird stuff that comes out of my mouth, okay? And I completely trust that that is what's going to help my client to feel lighter and to feel better inside of themselves. Because some people leave, they come with expectations, and some people leave feeling disappointed or feeling despondent because they had they might have heard about me from so-and-so or so-and-so, and they come here with an expectation that I've got to fix them or heal them in an hour and a half. And for all of those here, my gut sense is that we're all walking on our own journeys. And we're all working to be better in who we are as human beings. So does that answer your question? I just completely trust what comes out of my mouth. And the client might not get it there and then, because I have had moments where I've gone, shit.
It's more the synchronicity, Michelle, between, I think you've answered Araxi's question, but it's picking up things and then making that connection. One of the other questions we've got up here, someone passes away, how long before you can communicate with them? Can you do it within weeks? Do we have to wait till they've been over there a long time? Or is there a different feeling for someone that's just passed away to someone's been over there a long time?
So in my learnings and the way I have worked is it can be within hours. I had a client 2 weeks ago where the family member had passed on like within a few hours. Again, I had wondered whether my head was in play because of all the stuff that I've read and watched on YouTube. And I connected with the soul. I connected with the essence, the spirit of the person. And the beautiful message came through, which gave great healing in that moment. But I have read things about where it's like, oh, they're in this field or in that field. And I don't know, for me, it hasn't been that way.
For years, we were often told that until they'd reached the astral plane, and I'm not sure where that ever is, but they reached this astral plane or somewhere else, we couldn't communicate. Until they were strong enough, they couldn't communicate. But I wonder if nowadays the frequency is different. If people can communicate, like you say, within minutes, and then others take a long time. Do you find some of the spirits are hesitant about communicating?
Yes, very much so. So the way the spirits show up for me is the way the human being remembers them to be. So if I have, like I've had some spirits who have actually stood at my door if the client is in my room. Yeah. They've stood at my door and they're very respectful. I always find they're very respectful of the healing that is going to be happening in that moment. So yeah, they show up like if they were a quiet person in the human form, that's how they'll show up, as being pretty quiet. If they were quite bolshy, then they'll show up as being like, hey, here I am, woo! So it's for the benefit of the person sitting opposite me or the person that I'm working with.
What about the energies that may be a little bit disturbed? What about someone that feels a little bit mentally unstable, or the idea of like poltergeist, someone moving things around, or someone had a lot of emotional things? Have you ever had any of the encounters like that with energy that you picked up?
Personally, I've never looked at it like that, to be honest. So I would have a session with a client, and they would say to me, oh, I don't know if this is my dad that's showing up right now, but like stuff has been moved or a painting's been moved, and I put it straight yesterday and it was skew. And then the connection would be, yep, that's me. Excuse me, I haven't looked at it like you have, Tone, and I haven't encountered that as yet, to be honest. I will get messages with regards to how the person had passed on, how they looked. So it's confirmation for my client that this is how they remember them to be in their humanness. And for me, maybe it's in my vibration, maybe it's in the way that I channel. I personally have never had a an angry or harmful spirit in any way. All my sessions have been uplifting, healing, helping to find forgiveness. So yeah, I probably can't answer your exact question, but yeah.
I think you have, and I think if someone attracts a certain type of energy, that's what they attract. If you attract a love energy and that sort of thing, you will get that sort of message or spirit. What about, one of the questions that's sitting here now is, if someone passes over, can they change? Can they evolve? And if they weren't such a good communicator, can be a good communicator. Can they let go? What do you think when someone's passed away?
Can I tell you when I pass away?
Probably, yeah. Just don't do it on the show. That's all.
You know, I don't know.
Are they the same as when before they go away? I know they like
No, they're not. No,
They're not.
yeah. So probably I
What's
do know.
different?
I just I just sense that there's so much light, so much love in wherever they go. Okay,
Right.
and they are different. The hard part, though, for those of us that are alive, is that I had one client as an example that came here, and she you could see she was dumbfounded because her parents had so much to offer her to help her to heal.
Yes.
And she sat back, and I said, so how did that work for you? And she was livid. She used the F word, and she's like, who the F are they? Blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden they're so nice.
Right.
But we got her to laugh, and she got it. Like a week or two later, she came back and she said, Michelle, I get it. So they definitely transform into some kind of beauty, some kind of essence, some kind of somethingness that I think we're all working towards.
And you mentioned before about the idea of messages like this. We get messages from the spirit world, but also I noticed before you went into the channeling space and you were listening to guidance for yourself. Is that a guide, or is that just listening to words? Where do you go when you do that? Do you have someone who relates to you that's special, someone of a higher source or something that has an identity for you?
So they come to me in different ways. I have discovered that I come from many, many years ago, like American Indian. So I would see an American Indian chief. And sometimes in my healings, he shows up and he gives me the guidance. Then I've got a very flamboyant, her name's Charlotte, and she's one of my guides, and she's like really Spanish, and she's got all the colorfulness, and they show up for me differently. For me, just call my team. Hey team, can you give us guidance? Can you help whoever is coming to sit in front of me? And let's help them. Let's help them to heal. Let's help them to feel lighter. And the guidance just comes through. So it's words. I get pictures and I get words.
And as you related the story about the baby and that idea of taking it on yourself, that was quite a different sensation as you related before and said you picked up words in your head to give us clarity about what you're trying to say. Is there different frequencies on that side as well? When you pick up for somebody and you make a connection, does it feel different for you to words of wisdom, trying to put them across for the whole universe or something like that? I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but do you get different sensations in different channeling modes?
Yes, I most definitely do. I've had some clients who have had, who've lost animals, horses, and or have lost, they maybe have opted to have an abortion when they were a young teenager, and that soul comes through in that moment again to help that client. And I completely trust the information that's coming through. I never question it, ever, ever, ever.
And so now we've got two of us and probably a whole lot more on the screens that are weird and a bit crazy, and that we trust this thing and we do this thing.
Woo, guys, woo!
way woo out there. And one with the unicorn still sitting there. So why do this, Michelle? Why be a medium? This is probably the nuttiest job out. It has a sense of not everyone agrees with it. Why would we want to chase this? What makes us chase this? What is it for you?
So for me, and I'm going to share another personal story. I have never been drawn to any kind of drugs in my life, ever. It just never came into my field.
Yeah.
I mean, to give you an example, I did marijuana the first time when I came to New Zealand at the age of 45. And I did magic mushrooms once with a shaman, which was one of the most profound experiences of my life. And after I'd come out of that whole experience, which was like 4.5 hours later, I got a message that this was my purpose in life, was to help others heal, because I've endured so much trauma. My purpose is to show people that I have found lightness and true joy. True
Right.
joy.
In this process. Cool.
These
So
are, yeah,
regardless, there's a greater joy in doing what we do than what people say or whatever, and
for
the
sure.
reward of that is amazing. Tamati's got an amazing question here, Michelle. What about a baby? You know, somebody that doesn't have the communication skills, yet has the spirit. Can they relate to us from the other side?
They can, yes. I have had a few babies come through before, and they come through in the essence of who they are as
Right.
a soul. I maybe can't answer Tamati's question, and maybe for those of you who are on here, I'm really putting it out there that maybe you can give me some guidance in terms of how. Sometimes I don't know the how or the why. It just happens,
Yeah.
and it just brings the most beautiful healings. The most beautiful healings.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there, Michelle. A number of people will come for a reading who have lost somebody early or in the pregnancy. And that's one of the hardest ones to relate to, apart from, say, suicide.
Sure.
And when you relate to the spirit, it's an amazing sensation, because the spirit is so grateful for the family that allowed them to touch earth and then could go back again. And that's like huge for a family to give up a space and life and carry on. And that soul has touched enough to have the contact through beautiful couple, but that's all they wanted to do, or they were uncertain about being here. And so for those parents to choose or allow that to happen, I think it's quite an incredible situation.
Sure.
And part of Jill's question around that, do they have to come through as babies, or is a baby's energy like a spirit without an age to it? What would you pick up if you picked it up? Obviously, a baby can't talk that well. I don't think we're going to get bottles and diapers and...
No. It comes through as a spirit. It
As
comes
a spirit that can talk like an adult, yeah.
Yes, it comes through as a spirit, and again, I can only speak from my own personal experience, and that the words come through me, and a client walks away with a sense of healing. So even though I get pictures of, the way a older person would have looked like, I pick up also on the energy of the person that's sitting in front of me. So that with like that client that I had in South Africa, she told me she had that little baby in her arms and the white dress, because the baby was stillborn. So yeah, for me it comes through as a spirit, and I don't see it as an older child. But then the client will say to me, "Oh my goodness, guess what? I have a cat, or I had another baby," and I see in my nephew's eyes, I see that I just know that there's a connection. There's a connection between the baby I lost and my nephew. Or so that's the kind of interaction that we'll have in a service or a session. But I don't know, does that answer Jill's question perhaps?
But we've got half of it. The other part is, if somebody sort of passed away a wee while ago, do they age? And sometimes, someone's 80, but they come back as a 23-year-old. Does the spirit age, or does it give you a reference point or something you can relate to? What's your sense of that?
I've only ever had the experience of when, with the client sitting in front of me, they come through as the client remembered them. Okay. Sorry, Tony, just ask the question again so I can just...
Let's say someone passed away 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Have they got 5 years older with wrinkles on?
Oh, no. No, it's as they were when they were alive.
And sometimes you'll get an older person passed away, but you'll see them as a young age, like when they were in their 20s, and that's the memory of the client that's sitting with you.
Well, okay. So I have a very good friend of mine. She came for a reading, and this is how the spirit touched base with me. Was I got the words were, I committed suicide, and I literally got petrol being poured on him and setting himself alight.
Right.
Now, in that moment, I said to her, I'm not too sure, because I'm being shown that he committed suicide, but at the same time, it could also mean that he was such a vibrant human being. And then she confirmed, and she said, Michelle, he set himself alight. And I realized in that moment that I have to trust exactly what they're showing me and not put my take on it. Because it was like, oh, well, what are they showing me? Like, did he? Because the human part of me is like, he set himself alight. Like, my head doesn't want to comprehend that that's like, wow, thanks, Tamati. Thanks, bud. But do you know what I mean? It was like, Michelle, get your head out the way again. They're telling you exactly like it is, and you have to deliver it, because it's helping that person to heal. And then I get the confirmation from my clients.
It leads to a really nice question that Lily's put up here for us around the idea of who do we work for? So if we had a client sitting in front of you that wanted to touch base with somebody, is that what a medium can do? And what if the spirit doesn't want to touch base?
So to answer the first part of the question, yes, we can. We can touch base with the spirit. The second part of the question, if the spirit doesn't want to, they will be respectful of what is good for my client or the client sitting in front of me. Again, that's the experience I've had. I had a woman come to me once, and her dad showed up in her reading, and so her grandmother showed up, and then I said, and I have a father figure here. And she immediately shut me down, and she said, I don't want him in my reading.
Right.
And it's because she had a lot of issues with her father when he was living. And I then said to him telepathically, please be respectful. And he stepped back, and he was out of the reading completely. And then we spoke to her mom and her grandmother. So I hope that answers the question.
That's great. And what about spirits? Do spirits get trapped in a world between here and moving on? And can you as a medium work with spirits like that, help the families as well?
I have read about that. I've watched videos about that. I personally haven't had that experience as yet. So I can't answer that question, to be honest, from what the work that I do.
That's fine. And I suppose if I put my experience in here, you need to be really careful about that sense of the people in the world in between and how much you get involved in that. Because often one person has to be the conduit, and they bring them in on top of themselves, and then other people have to work with them. And that can be quite tormenting in your own energy while the other people are working on you as well. So that's good.
So can I just let you know that I always before every client, I always ask for the whitest of white light, the highest of highest, beautiful, loving energy, whether it be the Jesus light, whether it be whatever resonates. I will just ask. Sometimes I'll have Mary Magdalene, sometimes I'll have Archangel Michael, Angel of Mercy, Angel of Healing. I will just say, please let this be me, be of service to help this person feel better wherever they are in the world.
Now, Jules put up as well, and Lily's responded around using hypnosis as a technique, which is a great idea, those people in the middle, and that's really, really helpful. One thing that you and I have spoken about, I think would be quite an interesting thing to come to a conclusion, unless other people got some questions, is at the moment there seems to be a lot of people with similar guides. You know, when I grew up, a lot of people had red Indian guides, and sometimes even in one circle, they all had the same red feather guide, which was very interesting. I think it was a pattern of teaching rather than the guide itself. But at the moment, there's a lot of Jesus guides, a lot of Archangel Michael guides, Mary Magdalene guides. Do you have any thoughts on that, Michelle? Is why it might be, or is it just what's going on at the moment? Is that a invitation for people?
So I'm going to close my eyes and ask for the guidance to come through, if
Okay.
that's okay. Okay? Let's see what our guides have to say. Okay. Our energies and the energies where we are at are transforming all the time. So, Tony, to answer your question, it would be that there will be a universe, a certain amount of people that are talking about Jesus, talking about Mary Magdalene, just like Michelle was talking about them earlier on, because those are the guides that she feels comfortable with. So people will relate to whatever they bring into their space, the guides that they bring into their space. It does not really matter what the names are or who they are. Some people like Jill Cole, who has been in Peru, who has worked with the ancestors of the Peruvian people. She will work with those people. She's got her own guides, Dominus and Aurelius. So our offering to all of you tonight through Michelle is, it doesn't really matter. Work with what feels good for you. Call upon all of us. Call upon the council. Call upon the galactic energies. There are so many of us, and we are all transmuting and transforming as the energy and the universe is evolving. We hope that this has been of some assistance. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you very much. I'll just ask, has anyone got any more questions? Anyone want to come online and ask any questions to Michelle while we've got it? It's been nice having you talk through these things, Michelle, with us.
Thank you.
No more questions? Well, there's a good question. Can we do readings online, Michelle?
Yes, we can.
Well, there was the story for a long time that you didn't get the same energy unless you had the person in front of you. You couldn't get the same frequency, same vibration. I think COVID has certainly shown us to be completely different now. But is there any difference in the frequency that you pick up online to the frequency you'd see with the person in front of you, Michelle?
No difference. No difference whatsoever. Sorry, I don't know why I took that big breath. I think I just dropped into the energy of COVID there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the attitude to have. There is no difference. And if there is no difference, then you can just do what you want to do. It's when you put a barrier there that creates the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love you too, Tamati. Thank you for that beautiful message.
Well, Michelle's asked to connect to my dad, but I think that's fine. I think you don't really need to see my dad in this space. And she's also offering a Mother's Day special. So let's let you know that she's making herself available to all of us. If you wanted to have a look online on the 4IM site, you can find that she's willing to help out or do readings around this time online, Michelle, to be able to connect to people as well. I'd like to thank you heaps for coming online with us and sharing your story, all that hard things that you went through in the beginning, how you got to be a medium and how you operate and how you bring out things. I'm sure people sitting here who are mediums trying to develop their skill or have other skills have got something out of what you said. So a big thank you from us and a big thank you from the 4am team for coming on, being brave enough to front it tonight.
I would just like to say thank you to each and every one of you for pushing me out of my comfort zone. Okay, this has been so rewarding.